Close my eyes, evening dies. My frame rise up to the sunrise. Brand new day, new chance, something to say. If I can make a difference in this world, then I make it. So I must, so I trust. All my lyrics just etched into this new day, like I was busting. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome back to another edition of Ain't That Right? I'm your host, the Duncan Dad. We are live here on a beautiful, overcast Tuesday, back in the Northeast after our whirling adventures around the great 48, because we haven't gone all the way out to Hawaii or Alaska yet, but we're locked in here in the States, coming back off of a wonderful trip down to the ATL to hang out with those guys from the Evan Oglesby Foundation, as well as the gentleman from Tributary Cigars, great up-and-coming brand of cigars, nice boutique cigar making inways in the business, breaking the glass ceiling, really established themselves as a front runner for a really good quality cigar, opening up doors and breaking down boundaries and barriers. We'll be with those guys later on this month. They have an event in New York where they were going to be featured on Enthusiast Magazine, the cover. A great story behind the Tributary Cigar brand. If you guys want to, go ahead. I'll put the links up in my socials. It's going to be on Instagram, also on X, formerly known as Twitter. Go ahead and give those guys a like and follow. Really awesome what it is that they're doing, what they're trying to really bring to the consciousness of more individuals out there, and can't really knock them. Their very first cigar was rated 92. For you cigar aficionados out there, you know how important it is to have a good quality stick, especially when you're first making your presentation on scene. And like I said, next week they'll be featured in Enthusiast Magazine, cover the magazine, as well as a launch party in the city of New York. Will be on hand, hopefully, to document, record all those happenings from that evening. But last week, over this past weekend, Friday and Saturday, was fortunate enough to be down in Jonesboro, just south of Atlanta, to go ahead and give coverage for the Evan Oglesby Foundation and what they're trying to do within their community, raise awareness, as well as guarantee some funding for some of the summer camps that they have set up over this summer as well as past summers. Lots of former Ravens players on scene, as well as a couple of Falcons, and also some baseball players in the area. We'll highlight that completely on Thursday's show. We want to give it due justice as its place. But for the meantime, just go ahead and highlight briefly some of the other individuals that were on scene. And, you know, we talk about this all the time, making a change in your community, making a change in your world. And we hear all these little quick bits. Everyone reads the self-help books. Everyone has their little morning affirmations and their meditations. Everyone has their dream boards, etc. But, you know, when we really think about how we can get in and get involved, many times we don't know exactly where to look. And even in those cases, we don't know who's on the same page, right? Who's already working together, who is already assisting with the outreach, with the growth. And just advise everyone, let's go ahead and take a look around your current town, your current city, your current neighborhood. You know, there are always little Rotary clubs, organizations that exist within the community that you see that they're doing something behind the scenes, and they almost fade into the background. And we are challenging ourselves with getting out there and finding some of these outlets that are a resource for the community, especially now as the school year is winding up. It's crazy because we just talked about, you know, the school year beginning and obviously having certain supplies being provided by some of these entrepreneurs, some of these companies, some of these organizations, some of these LLCs. And now we're getting to the end of that conversation where what's going to happen during the summer, because a lot of times children will use school not only as a obviously a place to go and get their education, but, you know, many times that's what makes up the majority of their day. And when the summertime comes around, you have this dip either in this pursuit of an academic endeavor in conjunction with the unfortunate circumstances at times that maybe they can't stay in their house for whatever reason during the day. maybe there's no access to food, maybe there's no access to internet, maybe there's no access to a recreational activity. And why, again, it's so important that there's other resources made available in these situations, because you would like to have everybody just, go to the city pool, the city park, or, run down to the rec center and stuff will be provided there. But many times these centers, these programs now, they're just not fully equipped to meet the demand as to what's going on. And obviously we've seen a change in the way that the weather patterns are. Like, weather's gotten crazy nowadays, right? So, being in a position where you are able to help other individuals function, not only for a specific bit of time with school or over the summer or over the holiday, but something consistent that then puts them on a right trajectory to have some kind of change in their actual daily life, moving forward beyond just these little band-aids that we're, putting on things. And you have so many resources, again, like within the community that exist, that we want to get out there and we want to help, but where do we find it? Where do we find it? Okay, where do we find it? Well, specifically over this weekend, we talked about uh, community activists, community initiatives in one particular area. We're highlighting down in that Atlanta, that Jonesboro area. And what I'm trying to do with that is you just bring attention to similar resources that may be in your area that you would never think to go and, check them out. We see all these sponsors that run around, on the kids, like, little league uniforms, or they support the school or the CYO or the YMCA. And, a lot of times those are the businesses that are, you know, engrossed in the community. They're trying to lift people up, right? You see uh, people selling, extra water ice, people selling pretzels, people selling candy bars, people, they're trying to do anything to drum support for their particular, group or their team and whatnot. But on top of that, you have additional sponsors, and those additional sponsors a lot of times are, really towing the line for many of us out there. So again, it just feels good to go ahead and get out and take a part and be involved in, the community. And like I said, on Thursday, we'll definitely highlight, in full the actual event that took place, over last weekend, to really bring its rightful attention to it. We set up a couple interviews going forward with some of the business owners that were there on scene, and also to bring their story to the forefront and sort of share a little bit of their journey, and maybe use that prism, of life, sports, and everything in between, to see how actually we can affect, little bits of change in our life and the change around us, and hopefully be a more present, more active individual, not only for ourselves, but for those, around us. We also ran into one of our friends that we met in Paris last summer, which was kind of crazy. I saw the guest list, and they were like, "Oh, Olympic champion be on the list." And there's obviously a handful and a cache of individuals when you think of Olympic medalists. This just happened to be Dee Dee Trotter. Dee Dee Trotter, great track and field star for the U.S. over the past couple of years, and the past couple Olympiads. Was able to, by happenstance, ran into her when I was traveling with my beloved over this last summer, and just complete chance, walking past Team USA House, struck up a conversation, was there doing a little bit of, work/vacay, and just kind of filed it away in like the pictures. And then, I see this list of, who's going to be there. And of course, like, it's the very last guest of the night. She's just come from, work right now because she's starting a career as a chef. She makes desserts, actually. It's called Dee Dee's Desserts. And we'll have her on the program. We'll have her story. We'll sit down with her, talk shop a little bit, and we'll explain how we came to meet each other, and how this universe, pushed us together to kind of hang out and chit chat a little bit and share one other stories. But it was a very good time to go and sort of shut down the 100% sports aspect of life for a moment, and work on the networking and the communications and the building, and the cross promotion of brands, and again, looking and doing it all for a good cause, using that as sort of the palette for it. And many times when we do these sort of like introspectives, and we go to these events, we follow things, we communicate it back to the listeners, you guys, we really want to make it a point that there's a lot more going on in the world. I'm sure there's more going on in your world than people would, see face value. And if we can bring a little bit of attention to that good that's happening out there, then we've been fortunate enough to be able to take and use this platform to go ahead and do that, because using that vehicle of sports, life sports and everything between, you really can get into a different atmosphere, a different environment, a um, different social vehicle to explore everything that's going on, around us. I mean, obviously the NBA playoffs are in full swing. The NHL playoffs are in full swing. There's been a couple game sevens, which have been great. Everybody loves a game seven. There's been a there's been an uptick in some of the baseball that's happening. They're just putting up like football scores, which is crazy to me because I'm not used to that sort of run scoring that still gets in my head. Same thing with hockey when those playoff teams come around and, a team's winning 3-1 with a couple minutes left and they wound up losing, 4-3 in overtime. Like, how did this happen? Obviously, big news, round one finished with the Lakers not advancing in the playoffs. LeBron had an injury. Everyone's going to bust his balls about the injury, and every time it seems they lose playoff series, he always comes up with something to deflect what is actually happened or what's going on. But hey, to each their own. Like I said, I'm still going to take the ball and go run out and play. Pick me up with LeBron if he goes and does that. Have a little shout out here, checking in from good old out in Arizona, Penguin AZ, saying, "What up, DD? What's up, chat? Go D-backs, no sweep, yo. Yeah, no sweep action." I mean, the Phillies needed something. They were coming back a little bit, but you kind of get away from like the day-to-day action when you're going constantly. And I look up and I was like, man, they got this game. Sweep gone up, no sweep. Pitching came through for the D-backs. Phillies, still got to figure out a little bit of what's happening. Big news last night, NBA. Obviously, Celtics were up like 20 points. The Lakers, the Knicks. I always think Lakers, Celtics, right? But Celtics and the Knicks too. They were up like 20 points. Knicks came back. Brunson, man, he's locked in. It's like playoff Brunson's like playoff Kawhi, man. He knew it was coming in, it was happening, and they took over. Just a little, war of attrition. You got game 2 tonight. You got Pacers and the Cavaliers. Indianapolis surprised them game 1. Back in Cleveland again for game 2. T-Wolves and the Warriors game 1 kicks off tonight. Is this sort of like Steph and Draymond's last hurrah? Probably. But we said that last year. You never know. Minnesota, decent team. Gobert doing nice. Ant-Man doing nice. Hurricanes, Capitals, got game 1 of the NHL playoffs tonight as well. So lots of sports action. And, what I'm seeing when I look up and down the list, which is really cool, is that you have Cleveland, Ohio, right? St. Paul or Minneapolis, Minnesota, and Washington. And like right now, that's where your playoffs are taking place. And, you can't really find 3 places that are, a little more different, than those reasons, right? You got the Rust Belt and you've got the Midwest there. You've got, Minnesota up in the lakes. And then you've got obviously, Washington down there, into DC in the metro area. And again, it just shows how like everything in particular in sports, like it doesn't matter where you play, where you come from, if you get in there and you're on the same page with everybody and there's synergy going, you're going to make leaps and bounds, growth. And you find this outside in the world as well. And that's why, like, when you surround yourself with people, you're like, all right, what do we do for one another, right? How do we help each other grow? Have we gotten to a point where we haven't pushed each other enough? Have we gotten to a point where we've pushed each other too much? Have we gotten to a point where, this particular thing has run its course? Have we gotten to a particular point where someone needs to do more, someone needs to do less? And we use this conversation repeatedly because we're constantly like evolving, and you constantly get a feel when you're with a particular group, organization, relationship, whatever, you should be learning, all right, like now's the time for me to push. Now's the time for me to lay back. Now's the time for me to inquire a little bit more because I've put out feelers and now, all right, nothing else is coming back. Now's the time for me to, like, I'm getting the message, but Am I getting the message? Like you're still trying to figure out, engage, all these things. But when you get all that work and you get that on the same page, and you start to build brands and you start to build industry and you start to build relationships, having that open line of communication and not being afraid to, you know, they call it like, cutting the chaff from the wheat. Like there's some points where even when I speak to these individuals who run these foundations, who are running uh, their own their own companies, they very are quick to identify XYZ individual or self or whatnot has a specific skill set and asset that fits this. But beyond this particular temporary endeavor, like what will happen after the fact? Like, is that person going to evolve? Are we going to evolve? Am I willing to change? Are they willing to change? And you find out that when you see the finished product, a lot of times of individuals, you don't really see what's happening in the background, right? You don't see the tough conversations. You don't see the late nights. You don't see the hundreds of thousands of text messages, the emails, or however that comes across. Like there's always one or two people that are sort of silently moving in the background, taking care of these things. And when you are engrossed in that endeavor from the beginning, and it's sort of like your quote unquote baby, it's your project, you know, sometimes the closest people to that scene sometimes are like, okay, we've maxed out using what we need, from this, and vice versa. Like we can only give this much to that particular person. We've maxed out. All right, no hard feelings. Everything is good. But this is the exit that you get off of. I need to go down a couple more exits. And not saying that we're not going to meet back up, down the road, because I might need X, Y, and Z. You might need X, Y, Z for me. But it's just like right now, this vehicle has to detach and go this way, and this vehicle has to go that way. And you see how sometimes then, like within a group and organization, like that can really be empowering and or disruptive, right? A lot of times it's like, well, we would have worked more if so and so would have gotten an opportunity. We would have worked more had everybody been aware of X, Y, and Z. Or, man, I can't thank you all enough for doing X, Y, and Z because we've reached the limit of whatever's happening here, and let's just go your own way. It's sort of like when you perform a function for someone, or you perform a function like either within a job or not. Like at some point you're going to get so proficient in doing what you're doing is that you're going to master this level, right? You want to go to where like you've mastered something. Now once you master this level, master this craft, the logical next step of like, what else can I do? What else can I take on, or what else can I put into my toolbox along with this? And many times people will reach that level of mastery, my bomb, and that's it. They're done. Like they don't want anything else. They're comfortable, content in their space, and that's great. Like that's completely fine. But if you have other people who are wanting to like go beyond that or try something different or whatnot, you struggle at times because not everybody's on the same page. Maybe some people are on the same page. But like when you get to that point and you've mastered something, you moved on, create something that's there and you have it in front of you, there's always this worry of like, all right, is it good enough? Can it be better? How can we work on this? And then you start getting acknowledged. Oh, good product, good relationship, good brand, good da 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 da. There's some credence, there's some credibility, there's some chutzpah, whatever behind you. Getting to that point doesn't just happen without the work like on the way, right? And getting back to the point that along that journey, sometimes you got to cut yourself off, right? And it's difficult when you are excited to do something and you're excited to dive like headfirst into it and yes, let's go. And you're like, all right, what do I have? What do I bring to the table? Are they going to be good with it? I'm good with that. We're all on the same page. We're knocking out of the park. Sounds fantastic. Now, once we get here, what's the next step? What's the plan, right? Because that's what people like. That's what they will miss sometimes. Everybody's fully invested in their journey, right? And however that journey materializes or comes to fruition, that's going to be between you and whatever else that you involve yourself in or with or whatnot, right? Like, so you're gonna have good days, you're gonna have bad days, but like you persevere, get to that mountainy top that we talked about, the celebration part where we can gather and celebrate all of our successes. You're really celebrating the end of the journey, or at least the perceived end of the journey at this particular moment, and then how then do we proceed from there, right? And that's where we're getting at today. We're getting at the point where, are we happy and content with being at the top of the mountain and we're just going to exist? Are we going to maintain, or are we going to try to push beyond what we've accomplished, knowing that we're going to go through the same thing, if not more, this time around, right? You think of all the products and all the businesses and everything that you know have been involved in. Say, okay, today we're going to launch paper clips, right? And tomorrow you're like, man, like let's go into push pins, right? Oh, well, push pin comes along with a whole bunch more liability. You know, you don't have to worry about pinching your fingers between the paper clip. Now you never worry about poking your finger with the pokey end, like the push pin, right? So like liabilities and stuff go up more because you don't want to lose what you've already have established. That being said, taking those steps, taking that next venture, growing again, yeah, it is a risk. It is something that is going to take maybe a different formulation of the team that's around you, right? But not losing sight of the mission, the principle, the goal, the ethics, whatever comes along with it. That's that one goal, right? They talk about in sports, like there's a patriot way, right? Let's use that because there was dynasty for the longest time here, and there was just an assumed procedure that no matter what we were doing, what we accomplished, what our gains, what our failures, what our profit, what our loss was, we're going to go about it this way. And having all these other intricate matters in place, team, priority principles, practices, patience, all those in place, putting it through the same system and yielding positive results over and over and over and over and over, establish a sustainable routine. It establishes something that you can build continued success off of to a particular level. It's just that now when those components have run their course, when the tire or the timing belt or whatever has given you every last bit of tread, you need to introduce something different, or you need to be willing to be, hey, we're here. I don't want to do any more. Everyone's still on board with it. Okay, good. Because even though you may start on a vehicle with someone, you might get off before they're finished getting off down the line, right? Like they want to keep traveling down this road, and you're like, I'm good here. I want to be finished here. I'm content with being here. Later on, maybe I want to jump back on, and people are like, well, at that point, you might not be able to get back on. Are you fine with that? Are you content with that? It's like, oh, okay, yeah. I mean, you see people do business, right? It's like, oh, all of a sudden the business starts blowing up. It's like, oh, let me back in. 10 years down the line, had I bought stock then, had I done this, had I done that. Those are the risks that we take with life and relationships. That, not being here nor there, still falls back on you making sure that, number one, you're surrounding yourself with people who not only support you and want you to share your gifts and talents with them, but also individuals who recognize what it is that you're doing, right? Because one of the things that we haven't lost in today's day and age is that because so many things have become completely autonomous, we just assume that person A, B, or C is going to do jobs A, B, and C. And if need be, they'll figure out a way to do job D just in case. But for sure, A, B, and C are always going to be there. And if not, then we'll just switch out with another person to fill A, another person to fill B, another person to fill C. And the project, the desire, the dream, whatever, just goes forward and it goes forward. Because I'm not really looking for a uniqueness. I'm not looking to celebrate an individual per se. I'm just celebrating and making sure the function of this role is fulfilled, right? And you have this. Sometimes you got marketing people, you have media people, you have sales people, you have individuals who are your your promo squad and stuff like that. You wouldn't expect to get the same knowledge and passion out of someone who is just handing out giveaways as you would to someone who put their hands in the actual creation of the product or the business, right? Maybe they're a little more geared for that. Maybe there's just not enough time. Maybe there's bigger things that individuals above that are doing. So I can't allocate my time now to give away. Maybe I'll get to a point, I'll get to this area where I can have people to do giveaway stuff. But for now, I'm going to take advantage of that. I'm going to do that. Well, why? Well, because it's my product, it's my baby, it's my thing that I really love. And what I'm getting at is that you possess ownership of yourself, right? And so many times we're so quick to give ownership of ourselves away, either in our time, our responsibilities, our resources, whatever way it is, in order to like facilitate and accommodate, and justify a lot of the things that we happen to be taking part of. And while this is fine in some way, just like building your team, when you have an individual on the team, or you have an individual in any kind of relation or organization that puts their hand up and says, hey, wait a second, still on board with the same mission, still on board with the way that, we should go down this road because we want to achieve X, Y, and Z. But hey, I really feel that this particular department over here is getting overworked. And we've seen it now on the backside that it's affecting this, this, and this. So I love the energy, but X, Y, and Z. You might get top-down directive being, nah, it doesn't work like that. That's not where we want to go, blah, 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 blah. If you can't get on board, we might have to cut ties and da. And this happens throughout our lives, right? You all hang out with people, everyone's chilling. Someone says, oh, I'm thinking da, 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 da. And you got that half look where you're like, I don't know. I don't know. Should we draft that guy? Oh, the upside, the potential is amazing. Da, 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 da. But this guy over here is like the grocery run. I don't know. Like, I don't know. You reaching on this one? Do you want it to be a lot more than it is? Is it a lot more than it is? Are you able to handle it if it's a lot more than it is? Like all of these little rando questions that pop up, that you're all just making decisions in these relationships and choices to be like, well, I hope this works out good. It might not work out the best, but I'm going to give it my best. And if it doesn't work out and I get to a point, then I'm going to be okay with going my way and going their way. Or we're going to double down and we're going to keep going forward with this. But at some point, we're either going to celebrate together or we're going to shake hands and part our different ways. And the majority of times in your life, you are going to have the latter, right? The majority of the time in your life, you're going to have ventures that are going to be very finite. That's just the way that odds and laws work, right? Like you think of all the individuals you thought were the beginning and end all of your world from middle school years to high school years. And again, Murphy button, but where are those people now, like in your lives? How many people of them actually factually affect your life? Not like, oh, he's a friend, I can call him, blah, blah, blah. No, this is like, they've got a key to your front door. They come inside and what's yours is theirs is yours. And you trust them exponentially with name something, right? Like there's very few of those relationships. Yes, are there some? Of course. Yes, we get that. We understand Murphy buttons, boom, boom, boom. But for the most part, you're going to go through these changes and these relationships and these ventures in your life. And it's going to be great for that particular moment in that time. And that doesn't mean that it goes away. That doesn't mean that it never happened. That doesn't mean that it never resonated or meant anything to any other person involved. What it does mean is that it happened at this point in this time, and everyone can reflect lovingly or worse on it. If that's the case, if it was a bad time, you take some life lesson or whatever from it, and you move forward. And if you happen to touch base with that, hopefully, no matter what it is, you try to find the positive moments. But it's like having an ex, not seeing your ex for umpteen amount of times and then running into them coincidentally someplace. And you're like, okay, all right, carry on, right? Like you're going to have these moments more time than not. So when you actually get on board with a person, place, or thing, dream, desire, you're giving to this 100% of yourself. Why? Because although the majority of times it's not going to be one of those things that sustain itself, you don't know when it is going to be one of those things that's going to sustain itself. And if you sit there and you do your inventory and you look back, you're like, okay, we got here, we went there. This was fun with this person, but they really weren't part of the journey, so we had to get rid of them. Uh, we had to bring this person in because we were missing something. I thought it was me, but I wasn't the right person. I had to change, blah, 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 blah. Like when you start to have all these little life recognition moments for yourself, right? Let's dumb it down. We call them come to Jesus moments, right? Like you sit there and you're like, all right, like I'm starting to figure this out. I'm starting to put this together. How can I get out there and trust everyone? How can I get out there and make sure everyone's on the same page? How can I get out there and make sure, that everybody is going to be, pushing in a similar direction, and we'll make this all copacetic for everyone involved. Like you don't know. That's the whole thing of like it being trust and it being a crapshoot sometimes, and really making sure that you're doing this from a good place, right? You're investing your time and your energy. And that's why when you link up with a lot of these organizations, a lot of these entrepreneurs, a lot of these LLCs, you want to make sure that you're actually seeing the change being affected, right? Like you want to see that. You want to make sure that, you're going down a road where people, places, things are doing A, B, and C to contribute to Y, and it's yielding, Z over here, and it's making a point of change. It's making a difference. It's a business that everyone is believing in. Why? Because it wasn't just done overnight. Nothing wrong with overnight business. There's nothing wrong with, coming up with something that you see need filling, right? But when you have an investment in something, your community, investment in yourself, investment in your relationship, investment in your work, right? You need it to be the two-way street, right? You need it to be, working hand in hand towards something. And you're given these opportunities many times, but so many times we're either don't find ourselves in the right position, we're afraid, we are hesitant to jump into the fire because we know we're going to get burned, but like how bad are we going to get burned from it? It's going to be one of those crucible kind of burns where like it's hardening you and making you better, making you stronger, making you more, resilient, a little more perseverance. You're going to fight through the down times, or are you just going in for the quick flash fire and, fizzle out and be done? Like these are all these little life choices, nuances that are revealed to us every single day in every kind of capacity. And when you can find yourself in a position, and beat the drum on this one, guys, right? If you find yourself in a position where you can actually do some sort of change, I just encourage you to do it. I just do. I mean, again, I've never heard anybody, and granted, hit the Murphy button again, right? No good deed goes unpunished, right? Unfortunately, today's day and age. But I'd rather do that than not, especially given the means and given the opportunity. Like I've always been like a believer that like if you're in that position to make a choice and you have the means, then always go towards like that positive choice. Otherwise, like bigger picture, like why were you being set in that particular moment? Right? See someone's homeless, you just got done with your fast food, blah, 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 blah. Like there's a moment. Okay, I'm really hungry, blah, 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 blah. May I buy this guy something to have some for her? I'll share this. Right? Like you're presented these little tests, these little, I'll call them like the little humanality checks, every single day. Could be as simple as picking something up off the ground. Could be as simple as holding the door. Could be as simple as saying please and thank you. Very easy task, where usually like the greatest test or the easiest test, right? Like there's ones about, just doing the right and the respectable thing sometimes, right? Your integrity, your character, right? Like when no one's watching. But, sometimes doing those things are more impressive and mean more and chalk up more in that sort of human law realm than these big decisions of like, oh, I just found $1 million on the ground. What do I do with it? Right? You're like, oh, I'm going to keep the money, blah, blah. Like, nah, pick up the phone, obviously. But you're tasked with this every single day. And you're tasked with these decisions constantly to be like, all right, if this person, this place, this organization, this business is in my life, and I'm going to give myself to it and vice versa. One, is there open communication? Two, are we all on the same page? Three, if it gets to the point where, something is going a little awry, can we sit down and have an actual conversation to determine what stays, what goes, who stays, who goes? It's a lot of maturity. It's a lot of growth for the individuals when you get to this point. And you can be beating a dead horse sometimes. I just want some info, loop me in, let me feel, what's kind of going on, what else can we do? What else should we move forward with? And you are not going to get you're not going to get this information just like spontaneously. You might have the person who's like over the glass, like, we're doing this, and blah, blah, the time of this, and blah, blah, blah. And no one's got that. Like some people have jobs where like you can't complete a task without there being another direction on how to complete the task that you just completed more proficiently, right? When you do this in relationships, it's the same way. It's you start holding it up against everything that you have ever experienced before because you're trying to find something better, or you're trying to be in something better. You're trying to be a better version of yourself. But unless you're open to that, then all the saying in the world isn't going to really change anything. I could say this, I could want this, I need this, I have this. Well, what have we done, for ourselves to do that? Same thing with growing, in business. Like if you're not picking up your end of the bargain in business, or if you're not picking up your end with an organization, you're not holding stuff down. Like there is consequences for that, which is why when you get into a lot of these other society issues, when you talk about, work, remote work, going to school, attendance, behavior, basic society, just basic society and the way that it carries itself. Like there are instances now where you have to really challenge oneself to be like, I understand that you may have experienced a particular set of rules and instructions, and it's sort of been not hypothetical but implied, but in the actual real world, these rules are sort of like what govern the sanity. Like if you're supposed to be doing something within said organization and you're just not showing up, you're not being there, like there's going to be a reaction for that. And why I'm saying that is because there should be a reaction in what it is that you're doing every single day. You should be taking these mental notes of like, oh, that's how this person reacted. Oh, that's how that person reacted. And why? And if you're not judging people, you're observing the behavior to be like, well, this person takes me seriously, and they respect and they honor it is and understand what it is that I'm doing in my world. And when our times come together and our times are in line and our paths cross, then it'll be a joyful, celebrated time. It'll be a time where we can really bring up all the accomplishments and, celebrate one another. Or it'll be a lot more transactional of like, what are you doing? What do you need? Okay, thank you. And getting back to our episode, 2 weeks ago, like every time that you interact with someone, like you've heard this, right? It's a transaction. And you can have pleasant transactions. You can have unpleasant transactions. You can have just standard transactions. Yep. Here we go. Do this, do that. Thanks, Bob. Move on. Right. It's just that autonomous stuff that goes and goes and goes. And what you want to do is you want to get to a point where like your autonomous stuff is happy stuff. Right. But then there's other times where you just know, I'm in the spot. I want to be there. It's okay. Don't worry about it. Or when you go to actually move and either take some ownership or bring your concerns to the attentions of others, you're met with the selfish talk or you're met with um, the arrogance, or you're taking too much time on this particular project. You need to focus on this over here. And while this might be true, when people are not communicating, people are not on the same page, you begin to lose a little bit of this uh, happiness that exists or is supposed to exist within, whatever's going on, which is why people have meetings, which is why people, are open to their communications, which is why people are, wanting to stay in touch and loop me in and blah, 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 blah. And it's because like things change so quickly, right? And a lot of stuff that has once become like standard and established in anything in this world, that's not the case anymore, right? That's just, we see it evolve in sports all the time. We see where there's rule changes, we see that there's replays, we see that there's ways that overtimes are changed. This perceived notion that, okay, it's there and it's a standard, while that's a good thing, and we've talked about this in our early conversation, while it's good to have, the Patriots way, at some point there's an evolution to that, right? And the evolution isn't just because that the way has run its course. No, there's an evolution because the components that you're trying to assimilate within this quote unquote way, they've changed as well. So you're trying to yield the same results, and you're trying to yield a positive outcome, which will happen eventually. You may need to re-gear some things. And a lot of times people are like, oh, I don't want to re-gear things. I like how this is, and it's no big deal. And if you don't like it, it's my way or the highway, yada, yada, yada. Well, what unfortunately happens in that way is like many people are fixated on doing it one particular way, end of story. And while that works for them and their principle, that's all that it works for. Like it works for them and their principle. The other outside factors and people, places, and things are like, well, you know what? If they're going to go about it this way, we're not really aligned with that anymore. And then people are honest, well, how can you say that? Can you so much? Well, you just went in a different direction. So again, like we've changed the way that we decided to get on board and do things together, and that's not what we're doing. So, good luck to you. We're going to continue down, this road, blah, 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 blah. Having the ownership, the authenticity, having the full encapsulated picture of what it is that you, yourself, your relationship, your job, your career, your metaphysical being needs, those are great tools to have in your toolbox. But knowing when to take them out, right? Like that's the mastery, right? That's where you figure it all out. But if you are aligning with individuals who are making you take these tools out of your toolbox for them and other people more than for yourself, that's where you kind of need to look into some things, right? That's where you need to look into something. That's where, like, if you are wanting to get involved and you are wanting to be a helper in the community, right? Look for the helpers, as Mr. Rogers would say. Shout out to Fred. You have to be willing in some way to dictate, like, okay, these are my time, my tools, my talents, and I'd love to be involved with this over here. Are you going to do more? Sure, you're going to do more. Why? Because there's a need, right? And until the need is met, you're probably going to pick up some extra slack. Think of all of the teachers in the world that that haul in all this extra stuff to their classroom. Why? Well, because there's a budget and this is all they get. So you make your room fancier, well, that's on you. So yeah, like shout out to those people who are always going a little extra, a little always, above and beyond. The person who brings in, the little treats to work, etc. Why is that important? Well, because it is important. If not, we might as well just show up, punch the card, walk through the assembly line, 8 hours later, come on back out. Right? But that's not how we're geared, right? We're geared as people. We're geared as this constant relationship, right? I've said it to you guys a billion times. That's the secret to life, is relationships. Hands down, it's relationship. Relationship with a higher power, relationship with yourself, relationship to those around you. And then obviously there's tons of verticals that break off into them, but that more or less is the secret, because of your relationship with the things that you enjoy, the things you don't do, the things that you balance, your budget, and like all that stuff. It's all relationship. It's all relationship. What you justify, what you don't justify, what you can pay, what you can't pay, what you can earn, what you can't earn, who you can love, who you can't love, what you lost. Like it's all relationship. It's all relationship. So when you start to reach out, and when we get to highlight some of these, community businesses being on Thursday, and you look around your own community, like, listen, I can make a change. I can evolve myself. And sometimes you can evolve yourself from a distance. It's not for you getting out there, get your hands dirty. Then send Christmas cards, write letters to, people in assisted living, reach out in that regard, make a donation, maybe start like an online campaign. Like there's always a way for you to make some kind of change, that's going on in the world. But again, being willing to evolve if you need to evolve, be involved if you need to be more hands-on involved, being able to tell yourself, I reached the limit. I gotta stop for a second. I need to retool. I need to reevaluate who's on the team, what we're going to do going forward, how I need to switch it up. For the longest time, I was doing this. Now I'm going in this direction. So what does that all entail? What kind of change comes along with that? Are people going to be, supportive of that? Are people going to be against that? How is that going to, affect, the bigger picture? Right? This happens every single day. Over and over and over. It's what we do. It's our decisions. So today's our TED Talk on realizing that there is going to be times in your life where you're going to surround yourself by good people, places, and things. Amongst all that, working towards any kind of common goal, whether it's personal, interpersonal, career-wise, there's going to be decisions that are made that aren't necessarily the happiest feeling decisions in the world, right? Getting a degree. Well, I got to study. I got to cram a little bit more. I need to do this. I got to understand this, right? I'm going to have to give up this over here in order to have this on this side. Oh, yeah, we know it's right. But, we know all these things, but nobody wants to really say it out loud, right? It's all just assumed because, well, they'll just figure it out. Oh, they know. It's okay. No, you need to remind people sometimes, right? You need to remind people hey, it might not be important to you, but I go to work each day and we're working on X, Y, and Z right now. And I know it doesn't really, resonate in your world, but in my world, it's very important. It's very meaningful to me. And I'm kind of under, a little bit of stress when it comes to this. Or I'm really excited I'm doing X, Y, and Z. Or, hey, I'd like to do this for you and I'd like to be available for you. However, I have this, and this on my plate. Right? And it's we're afraid sometimes to use our power of no because we don't want to disappoint or put off anyone. But a lot of times the no, instead of it being a hard, it's not for me, it's not mine, I don't want to, hard stop, full stop, negative. The no sometimes is a reflective word back to the sayer that sort of makes them reevaluate for a second. There's that word again. What am I asking? Is it right? Is it just? Is it meaningful? Is it something that I'm sharing? Is it a need? Is it a demand? Is it a veiled demand? Is it an ultimatum? Something like, what do you want to eat? You want them? Blah, blah. No, I'm good. No. Okay, fine. You don't want that. Hey, could really like you to help me out today, do X, Y, and Z because of blah, 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 blah. And you're like, oh, no, I can't. So now, that person should be thinking okay, well, I value them as a person, and obviously they must have something pretty important that's going on in their world, and I respect that. But a lot of times what we get is, you're not available? I'm always available. How can this always happen? You're going to think, what's happening? And then the gossip train starts. Everybody and their brother gets on board. Instead of it just being hey, so-and-so wasn't available. Okay, cool. So now, you're thinking, all right, have I overly used this relationship? Have I assumed that this is the way the relationship is tiered? Have I given back enough to this relationship? Have I communicate enough in this relationship? Have like there all of these things, and this isn't like, oh my god, every question that you ask and no, you should break this down, blah blah blah. But like have this assumption in your head that you go to XYZ people to do X, Y, and Z things. Right? Going to a tech department, I need whatever, and they're like, hey, guess what, man? No, man, not today. Whoa, well, what's up? Like I would assume, all right, these guys are swamped. Like something big must be on their plate because 9 times out of 10, they take it. That's their role. That's what they do. But they're gonna tell me right now that knows a go, but it's important to me. Something bigger has to be happening here. This doesn't mean you don't advocate for what you need or what you want or how you're feeling, but it means that a lot of times we hear the yes and we hear the no, and we stop right there. Right? We don't understand the yes. We don't understand the no that comes from people. And when you go down these roads and get in these ventures, those are really amazing tools because there should be like a finality with those statements. You can help us out? Yeah, I'm going to help you out. Cool. Well, that means that when you decide to help out in whatever way it is, top to bottom, 365, all the way around, like you're in it. Like that's the impression of like help. It's like, so if we need you to, fly the airplane or, clean the toilet, you're going to do both. Right. And then other people are like, no, it should be like, okay, we value what that person has going on. They must be busy, blah, 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 blah. What other responsibilities are there? This is the way we're going to go about it. But when you're disingenuous with your replies and disingenuous with the questions, or you're not completely open with all the communication, it gives people a bunch of like stress, a bunch of agita, as we like to say, because people then are put in a spot where, although it may be correct, which it is correct. There's no argument the correct thing. The way that it can be perceived sometimes is like, oh, wow, that was kind of assumptive. Like that was very presumptive, right? Very presumptive, very presumptive of, XYZ. That I guess I was just going to handle that job too. No big deal. I got it. Don't worry about it. That just comes part and parcel with what's happening over here. Having those prior to practice, having the communications open, having, these conversations before the conversations come up, like these are all signs of good, strong relationships. It's not a bad thing. It's like, hey, everyone needs to be on the same page here. So let's get on the same page. So if I go ahead and I align myself with XYZ business corporation foundation, then I want to know that you're invested in this just as much as I'm invested in it, because I'm going to give you 100 billion%, and vice versa. And there's a lot of hesitation in today's world when we say about what can I do, where can I go, how can I help, right? Because all you're seeing is like a lot of these figureheads making a ton of money, and oh well, we're just selling extra clothes over here at the secondhand store. Just using it as an example, like we've taken a turn in a really good way that it's not going to stop the 15 minutes of fame. It's not going to stop the fad, right? Shout out to Hudsucker Proxy. But we've really come back many ways to where authenticity in an endeavor really matters again. And that's awesome. And that's really, really awesome. And come Thursday, we'll speak a little bit more on those endeavors with a lot of the organizations that I came in contact with over this past weekend, as well as my time traveling around the world. I'd like to thank everybody for joining me today. And I want you all to have a great Tuesday. A little bit of thunderstorms on the horizon this afternoon here in the Northeast. So wherever you are, enjoy your day, stay dry, and have a wonderful, wonderful rest of the week. I will see everybody back on Thursday, 1 o'clock. We'll do our